it's so easy to be afraid and to hide behind, whether it be alcohol or hide behind something. But I think get stuck in, don't be afraid. Do your best to embrace discomfort while still respecting that sometimes discomfort is a survival mechanism. But do your best to find that balance with where you're putting yourself in a position where you can grow and to show how incredible you really are.
I was vegetarian and vegan for about 15 years. I've been working out for over 20 years. I've been doing yoga for all that time, meditating for 20 plus years, surrounded in wonderful community and all of that. But I say that probably the most important change that I ever made was giving up alcohol when I was in my mid-20s. You guys haven't been drinking for a very long time either. What would you say, how would you say that has affected you? And what would your most important change be out of all the things that you guys are doing?
Yeah, we kind of forgot that alcohol had a serious piece to play, because it has been 20 years. Like, we forgot that it is like, it's almost like the checkmate kind of piece that certainly for us, it was the tool that catalyzed a certain lifestyle for us. And by moving that piece, and we didn't mean to, we gave it up for 2 weeks, and that 2 weeks has been more than 20 years now. So we never intended to, it just ended up, it happened that way. But it certainly forced us to face ourselves, and it forced us to kind of have to embrace social discomfort and more realize with where was the authentic self, where is the real version of ourselves, that what floats our own boats, and to play our own tune, all these kind of, like, I could use loads of different cliches. You're doing great. But really, it's in our own experience, when we gave up alcohol, it forced us to have to go, well, where is my meaning? Where do I find purpose? What kind of makes me feel more myself? And it forced us on that journey of realizing that food and community and spirituality and yoga, and it really was the springboard, when we look back now, that giving it up it just enabled all these other things. And yeah, it's been a blessing in our lives. And I'm not saying there's any problem with alcohol, because everyone has their own individual relationship with it, but certainly we found it to be a kind of giving it up. Like, I think I remember being frustrated with, I'd have loads of ideas at the start of the week of what I wanted to do. I'd have loads of dreams and visions. And then I might go for a drink with someone on Monday night. And this is in college. So this is in those days, I'd go for a drink on Monday night.
And in Ireland, there's an expression like, there's no such thing as one drink. You have one drink and then we'll have another.
And then Tuesday's a blur. And then Wednesday you go for another drink. And then sure, it's Sunday again. And you realize, oh my God, well, what happened? And I guess there was underneath at a very deep level, there was that kind of realizing that, oh my God, maybe this isn't the best thing to do, but there's all those social habits and all these social circumstances that were evolve around drinking alcohol. And then I guess it was for us, really, we gave up just before we went away traveling separately. So we had a couple of years by ourselves, kind of roaming around, where we weren't being held with social situations. We could reinvent ourselves everywhere we went, and drink just wasn't part of it. And then we came home, we started the Happy Pear, which was the kind of antithesis of our rugby playing, alcohol swilling, women chasing days. And it really was, we were on a different path of vegetables and yoga and sea swimming. And it sounds very pious and very monastic like, but that's kind of what it was like at the time.
And I think what alcohol, for us anyway, it kind of provided kind of like a numbing fuel. It kind of numbed some of the dis-ease that we felt within ourselves. And it was only when we kind of stopped drinking alcohol that we had to kind of deal with that discomfort or those.
Or how do you find more meaning during your day that you're not looking forward to Friday night, when I can actually be myself when I'm 3 pints into it? You know, it was more that, how do I like myself more during the day? How do I, if alcohol was the way to meet, for us in our context, for us to meet girls or women, you know, how can I talk to girls during the day? Like, how do I become comfortable enough in myself that I can just go up and have a chat with someone who I think I'd like to spend time with, and those things. And then when I realized you could talk to girls during the day, well, then it was totally sustainable.
Let's go back before we get into what's happening now. Let's go back to Whistler, and then also Dave, I'm not sure where you were at that time, but I know you both were exploring vegetarianism. And I want to talk about what your trailhead was to vegetarianism.
Yeah, so
individually.
So Steve here, it was only when we kind of finished university, a friend, Tommy.
When was that?
That was
2000.
Yeah, around 2000, 2001. A friend, Tommy Kelly, was turning 40. And Tommy was, at the stage, at that time we were 20. And Tommy kind of said, lads, I wonder, would you be up for running a marathon for my birthday to celebrate? And we thought, great. Because we were a good friend with Tommy's son, Gareth, and he was a great runner. And we were always, very sporty. We were a bit like greyhounds, just loved to run. So we thought, great. And this was in the summer, and the marathon was the end of October. And I remember Mom was really proud that we finished university, and I'd just done a master's. It was like, wow, well done, lads. So she bought us a ticket to go traveling around Europe. At the time, it was called Interrailing. You had this train ticket that enabled you to go to lots of take the train to Czech Republic. Oh, let's go to Poland. Where we go today? Dave Holland, or where we go. So there was wonderful freedom, and we kind of forgot to train for the marathon. This was through September, and we just got drunk and we chased international women. And we came back early October, and it was like, shit, Dave, we've a marathon in 30 days. We forgot to train. It's like, oh yeah, we really should train. So I remember in school, down the back of the biology class, I used to sit beside this fella called Keith Barry, and Keith Barry was mad into the drums. And he just one day started talking about this thing called a detox. And it was like, what the hell is a detox? And we kind of kicked it around a bit. And no one knew what it was. It wasn't like in the social kind of dialect. It wasn't a word that was used. So I remember going down to the local library because the internet wasn't around, and I asked them, do you have a book on detox? And they said, no, but there's one in Dublin. It'll be here next week. So it was like, great. So
great service.
So we got the book the next week and we read it, and it was like, okay, cool. So it says, okay, so we're going to eat brown bread instead of white bread. We're going to eat porridge instead of cornflakes and cereals. We're going to give up junk food. And the big thing was no booze. So we said we'd do this for a couple of weeks before the marathon, our detox. So we did it, and we found out it was pretty nice, and we felt kind of pretty grounded, and we were interested in like lentils and beans and what the hell is it, chickpeas. This is before supermarkets used to stock these strange kind of, ethnic foods, was to the way we brought up, to the way we were brought up. So it was fascinating in lots of ways. And this kind of was the start of us understanding that food was more than simply sustenance. So it was then when I went to Whistler, it was like suddenly, we did the marathon and it felt great. And we still weren't drinking. And it was kind of like, Dave, this feels pretty good. Like, I wonder will we keep going? So this was the end of October, and we thought, well, maybe let's do it for another month. And we did it for another month and felt good. And then December was coming, and we were meant to meet the lads. So like we went to an all boys school. So the lads were, it was real kind of macho men getting together. And what do? They get drunk and they, do stupid things together. So we were meant to meet them in Dublin. I remember going in to meet the lads, and we were going to get back in the wagon and have a load of booze. It was going to be great fun. And we met the lads. It was in the Thunder Road Cafe in Dublin, in Temple Bar. And I remember going up to the bar and ordering a pint, and I was delighted. Dave, here we go. We're back on it. And, I only took a couple of sips of the pint. It just felt weird. And the whole kind of lad culture just felt like, nah, I've done this. This is not, the answer for me isn't here. And we left early and went home. And it was kind of from there that it kind of started the curiosity within each of us to kind of go, what is food, and how does this impact how we feel and how we interact with the world?
What was the idea for your professional life at that point in time? What were you planning to do?
Oh, there was no professional life. Like at that stage, we'd gone through business. We'd studied business and gone, oh my God, I'm just don't believe it all. I want to go away. Like there was no real professional. It was just,
yeah. Were you making enough money with the modeling and stuff to pay your bills?
I think we'd loads of crappy odd jobs, and we'd do them to earn enough money. We were still living at home. So, and at that stage, university was free in Ireland. So we didn't have much costs, so we saved up enough to go traveling separately. At that stage, I was 21, and I went to South Africa to go. This is Dave. I went to South Africa to go see if I wanted to be a professional golfer. So I was playing off pretty much close to scratch in golf. So I went over and I joined a golf club over there with the idea of practicing for the winter and seeing if this was my path. And after about 2 months, I ended up selling my clubs and going, good luck, golf. I've had enough of that. There must be more than hitting a white ball in a hole. And I just wanted to see what else life had on offer. So kind of, I guess, started a bit Jack Kerouac style or Huckleberry Finn, you know, had a few bits of clothes in my back and wandered around and following my nose, really seeing where my path was really in life in terms of what interested me and what didn't interest me and what kind of people. And it was a kind of 2-year journey for both of us where we ended up traveling separately most of the time and realized that food and spirituality and community and all these things just started emerging. Really, it wasn't so much that we were looking for anything, but we were literally following sense, you know, little subtle call, like you were just going around
breadcrumbs,
following the breadcrumbs to see if it led to a chocolate cake or something, you know. It's that type of thing. And I guess we realized that I probably started with food, you know, we ended up changing them, but you know, at this stage there was no internet, so it was reading books. You know, I guess I found a book and the book was talking about healthy food, and I guess then I got more into that, and then I probably found another book and it was about eating whole foods, and then there was another book about raw foods or vegan and fasting, and I would have been more and more curious, and then it all crossed over into spirituality, and then sure, we were deep down that path after a while, you know, and realizing that yoga and meditation and spirituality and all these things kind of tied into it. And I guess when you get a yellow car, you start seeing other people with yellow cars, and then the further we went down that path of getting interest in yoga and meditation, the more type of those kind of people we met. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going here, but
so you mentioned when you came back home, you had basically changed. You had become these sort of new people. You had these new interests. You were really excited about it. I had the same experience. I was hardcore vegan, came back home to Alabama. Nobody in my family, this is in the 90s. So you can imagine nobody in my family was in Alabama in the South was into any of that. They called all of my food bird food and whatnot. And I'm just curious, what kind of pushback that you all get from your family, from your other brothers? I know your friends thought you were a little bit weird because you weren't out drinking and doing all those things. But what was your family's response like?
Oh, definitely not into it. They kind of thought, Jesus, lads, what the hell? You know, like, even though you told them on the phone, like, oh yeah, no, we're vegan now, Mom, yeah. And she'd go, yeah, whatever, you know, and you know, and then lo and behold, we make it home and she cooks the lamb and she cooks the beef and goes, geez, the lads are home. Oh, I'll cook it all. I shall forget that shite they're on about vegan. Good luck to you. Which will you have, Steve? The chicken or the beef, or the lamb or the beef? And she's like, Mom, I'm a vegan. I told you, Mom. Come on. She's cut the crap now, Steve. The lamb or the beef, you know, and obviously, you know, that was a cross to bear. But certainly they weren't really into it at all from the start.
And I think it was a lot easier because there was two of us. It gave a lot more, I guess, support for the vulnerability and the weirdness. The weirdness is as in we wanted to eat a vegan diet amongst a family which were all carnivores.
Not carnivores, but we're just not vegan in any way. We're just normal Irish food choices.
So I think having the two of us gave a lot more support to it. But I guess over time, once they kind of saw.
And then, no, I was just going to say, and I guess that gave us realizing that, you know, here we had changed our own lifestyle and our own habits. And then we realized that, and this wouldn't be rationally, this was just subconsciously realizing that, oh my God, like there's no way we're going to be able to battle this storm by ourselves. So Steve had the idea, why don't we start a vegetable shop, or why don't we start something which is like, you know, what we wanted to find, like, you know, the places that we used to, when we were traveling, we'd be trying to seek out like kind of veg shops and whole food places and plant-based places that kind of had a whiff of spirituality in them and had a community. And it was this type of thing. It was like, why don't we start a veg shop and start like a center for the revolution, you know? And that was probably what the type of language we would have used. And yeah, we were 24 and we'd just come home and we started a veg shop, which obviously before we left, people in our town, you know, would have treated us with lots of respect and go, oh, those lovely Happy Pear lads, they're really nice. No, we weren't the Happy Pear lads. We were those Flynn twins. Geez, they're great at sport. They really are. They're great at sport and they're fierce, nice lads. And then here we were now vegan and didn't drink, and we were starting a vegetable shop, and people thought we'd really lost our way. And, you know, they really almost looked down on us.
When you were talking in terms of revolution, who was your role model? Had you read like Autobiography of a Yogi or The Alchemist?
Yeah,
Or
I tried that one a few times and I found it just too out there. You know, I liked the stories, but I certainly tried it a few times. I'd read, oh, geez, I can't even think of the books that we read.
I always liked
I definitely read The Alchemist and all those ones.
what's Siddhartha? I was
Siddhartha, Herman Hesse,
Siddhartha.
nice one, yeah.
and the Glass Bead Game. I loved that. I thought it was a great book.
They were nice books. But yeah, I can't even think back if there was any book in particular. But it was we got into, as Stephen said, into Vipassana, into those meditation centers.
So you'd done that in Texas already at this point? You'd already done the Vipassana course?
I did a 10-day course. I remember I was hitchhiking from Vancouver down to San Francisco, and I wanted to, or San Diego. My brother, our middle brother, was in San Diego, and I was like, I tried to get there before and I didn't get there. I was like, I'm getting to San Diego. And I remember on the bus I met these people that were going to Burning Man. I was like, whoa, Burning Man, I heard about that sounds cool. And they were wearing cool clothes, and I thought, wow, I want to be like that. So I remember I went down and met my brother Mark and told Mark, I'm going to Burning Man, sorry. And I hitchhiked my way up to I think it was Nevada or
Nevada.
Yeah, Nevada.
Black Rock.
Yeah. And I went there and spent maybe a week or two there. And I remember I just had enough one day, and I was on my own, and I just said, I'm getting a lift with, in my head, I just said, I'm getting a lift with whoever the next person is, and I don't care where they're going. I'm leaving, because I stayed around for a week to help tidy up. And then the fella took me to, the guy that was giving me a lift, really nice guy, took me to San Francisco. And I remember I ended up in a hostel in San Francisco. And I remember sitting there going, okay, I've heard of this place called Hedonism, an island where it was all exploring meaning through hedonistic life. And I thought, that sounds great. And then at the other time, I'd heard about this thing called Vipassana meditation. And I thought, well, okay, I'll have a look for both of them, and I'll apply to both of them, and I'll see which one comes, and I'll go to whichever one, opens up to me first. And I got accepted into this Vipassana meditation course in Texas. So I hitchhiked my way right across from California to Texas. And I went and did this 10-day meditation course. And I thought, going in, I was wildly curious about it. And I was kind of, the first few days, it felt like, am I being brainwashed? What the hell is going on? And then this simple concept of, can you sit with yourself and your own thoughts and find peace? It was like, oh my God, this is the most profound, simple, and hardest thing I've ever done. And at the end, I remember feeling just so euphoric and connected. And it was like, why don't we all do this? This is such a practice to help us feel more comfortable within ourselves and find more grace in our daily life. And I remember calling Dave up, and Dave was, I don't know where the hell you were. You were probably in Central America, up a mango tree, stuff in your face. But Dad had done a course with this fella called Tony Robbins. And I remember him saying, lads, you got to go. It was amazing. If you can find your way to New York, I'll pay for it. He thought it was that good. So we found our way to New York, and me and Dave went and did the Tony Robbins course, and it was fabulous, and we had great fun, and we loved it. And then the week afterwards, we ended up going up to Massachusetts to do a meditation course in Vipassana. And it was such a contrast between, here was one incredibly inspiring man suggesting you can do it all, you can have it all, you can be who you want. And then the other one was like, sit in silence and find peace. And we were much more drawn towards the Vipassana thing. It just seemed to really struck a chord with us, a chord that we didn't expect. And we ended up staying there for a month, and really, for the next couple of years, we used to meditate 2 hours every day. It was a really strong practice and something that gave us huge meaning.
Wow. So Dave, that was your first Vipassana experience in Massachusetts?
Yeah.
1 month.
Yeah, we ended up spending a month. Yeah. Well, like I did a 10-day course, and then we stayed on for, I don't know how many courses, just cooking and cleaning and
volunteering. Yeah.
Sure, we had nothing to be doing. So it was great. It was good fun. We loved it. We had a ball. Like, it sounds crazy, but we'd such a laugh doing it,
right,
while meditating and all that as well. It was a really fun time as well.
So would you say in hindsight, maybe you didn't realize this at the time, would you say in hindsight that was where you first cooked up the idea of this revolution? Sitting with yourself
I could never,
all those hours?
I don't think either of us could ever say we cooked it up. I'd say we are just going.
Or it was downloaded. It was downloaded from the cloud.
Yeah, maybe there was, like, we got a big breadcrumb there, but literally we were following the breadcrumbs and there was no idea of where we were going. Like even starting the veg shop, it wasn't like we were going for, we were going to build this
right
vehicle for social change. It was like we were starting, we
fruit stand basically.
We knew what we were doing today. And maybe this week.
But we did, like, you're being facetious here. We did have this idea that we wanted to create. I called you up and said, let's start a food revolution. It was very clear that we weren't starting a fruit and veg shop to sell fruit.
But we didn't know what we were. It was like it wasn't like we were trying to open 3 stores or 5 stores or 10 stores. Like we didn't have any idea what it looked like.
We didn't want to.
There was no business plan, basically.
No, we knew what it felt like.
Yeah, see that was the thing. It was like, and ironically, Dave will say it wasn't 3 stores, it was 5 stores. There was no limit on it. It was like, this is just this vision. We want to create a revolution. So there's no end to the work. This isn't about measured in profitability or like balance sheet or, what's your working capital. It was measured in like, how much social impact can we have and how can we just bring more meaning to our community and to the world at large. So it was so exciting, and it still is. We've been at it 17 years, and it's that was the inception of it.
All right, so you had an MBA, correct?
Yeah, MBS. So I did a master's in business studies, specializing in e-commerce.
Okay. So you have the idea. We're going to open up this thing. What's the first step? What's the first thing do you come up with a name? Did you have the Happy Pear at that time? Did you find a location? Did you get that $100,000 loan right away? Like, how did you decide to tackle this?
We knew there was, I think you walked into the local veg shop and asked your man, would he sell it? And he said, everything's for sale at the right price. So it was like, oh, okay. We might have a clubhouse here. And then I think we went to the bank. It was 2004. So we did a business plan on the back of an envelope. It was the Celtic Tigers. There was loads of money around. So
Celtic Tiger, for those of you who don't know, was a time in Ireland when it was huge economic boom. And
there was a lot so easy to get money. So we were able to borrow 100 grand very easily to kind of take over this little vegetable shop. And we ended up calling it the Happy Pear, but we nearly called it Flynn's Fruit and Veg for Social Change. Because really baked into it from the very start was the idea of, it really was about social impact and about trying to get people to eat more veg, to build community and inspire people to live happy, healthier lives, which sounds like something out of Walt Disney, but genuinely we gave porridge away for free. We used to go talk in local schools, which sounds quite normal now, but back then it was like 17 years ago. It was quite a different kind of way of doing things,
What did you want to do differently than whatever the person who you bought the shop was doing with their fruit and vegetable?
Well, they were selling vegetables. We were selling a better way of life. So it was a fundamental difference.
Talk about the difference in those two.
Well, most people probably have heard that analogy of, you've got the person built, there's like a guy carrying bricks and he's kind of going, oh, what do you do for a living? And he goes, oh, I just fucking carry bricks all day and it's so annoying. And then you've got this other guy and he goes, well, I carry bricks to my friend, or he's like slightly up the food chain or whatever. And he's carrying bricks and he's putting mortar on it or whatever. And then the third guy's like skipping along and he's like, I'm building a cathedral. And I think it's more your perspective on what you do as much as what you do. And I guess we were never selling vegetables. We were always changing the world. Like that was what we were trying to do.
I remember, ironically, we used to fill out these central statistic offices, a government body who was trying to, keep stats on, the industry in Ireland. And I remember for some reason, I started filling out those forms. And when you start filling them out, they seem to send them to you every fucking month. And I remember they'd always ask, what's your profession? And I'd always write revolutionary. And I'd always go, why the hell don't they have revolutionary up in this? Because for us, it really wasn't that we were selling fruit and veg. It was like,
and looking back now, we were very naive and foolish or whatever. But that was the reality of where we were at then.
You used to also say that instead of I'm going to work, I'm going to play.
We still say that.
We're going to play shop.
Going to play
shop.
So
talk a little bit about the way you decided to approach business, having had all of your experiences, and what you were going to do differently.
Well, I guess it was like most people starting a business would do a business plan and they've got a structured and a strategy and projected earnings and costs, and they've done all their spreadsheets and all sorts of things. We didn't do any of that. We didn't do it.
And yet our training was all in that.
Like we didn't do the tiniest bit of that. Like we didn't just, it really was about, and it sounds so twee, but it was
so ignorant.
so stupid, really, but it really was about trying to change the world. And this was in our world at the time was our own little town. So it really was about
trying to get people to eat more veg, trying to bring people together
and inspire more people like into a more positive way of life. We didn't like, it really was like feeling around in the dark for figuring out what it was, but certainly we had found through changing our own diet and lifestyle and the way we were living, our own experience of well-being had changed hugely. And I guess it was about how can we share this gift, or how we felt like we found a big breadcrumb and we wanted to share it with more people.
So how did you imagine it playing out back in the early days? Did you think people were just going to come and it'd be word of mouth, everyone's going to love it, and then somebody's going to hear about it in London, and then we're going to...
No idea. We no idea. True. We were having a ball. The thing was to have so much fun today. Like, I think it was like literally about, like, we just had so much fun playing shop, like literally getting in our little van, driving into the fruit market at 4:30 in the morning, rocking around the market, buying vegetables, coming back, setting up shop. Yeah.
And then seeing who was going to come in today and who you're going to meet and the chats
who are you going to wag your tail to and just have a ball with. And then what we found was, because we were having so much fun, there was so many other people wanted to help you. They just wanted to help you. And they didn't want money. Like, they just wanted to help you. They wanted to be involved. Geez, lads, you're having a ball. How can I help you? And we found there was so many people kind of helped us find our way and help chart a path. And it kind of
was that Pierce was one of your first people who wanted to help you guys?
Pierce still works with us. He's a great character. But there was loads of people, like there was loads of Spanish people and Siobhan and people that would be off for the summer, and they'd say, "Oh, listen, you can just pay me in vegetables, like, or you don't need to pay me, like, I'll just help you, like, you're so far off the mark here, lads. I'll help you a little bit. It's so filthy, like, or whatever it was. It was just people realizing that we could do with a help, and we were very well intentioned, but probably,
we could do with a little bit of the pencil being
a bit of guidance or whatever.
Okay, so 4:30 in the morning, fruit stand. Talk about how that sort of dovetailed into your morning routine.
Yeah, I guess it's evolved over the years, because, like, I guess even then when we used to go to the fruit market, this is for the first kind of decade, we used to go to the fruit market at 4:30 in the morning. One of us would, or Mark would, and we used to get up at 3:30 and meditate before it, which was really, sadistic. But we used to do that, and then we'd meditate in the evening or whatnot as well. And that lasted probably until we had kids, not together, but separately. And then just there was too much priorities shifted completely. And I guess having kids, you're just fighting the storm for the first couple of years. But I guess we were used to early mornings, and we realized the joy of early mornings and
the peace and the silence and the kind of, for ourselves, everyone's different, but for us, it provided more space to connect with ourselves and to feel more grounded. And the silence, there was a solace in the silence, that was kind of often missing during the busyness of the day.
So even like our morning routine for the last close to a decade now really we'll swim in the sea at sunrise, the cold Irish Sea.
And sunrise changes. So in summer right now, sunrise today was 5:24. The peak of summer, which is June 21st, or the summer solstice, it'll be 4:50 a.m. And then in winter, the winter solstice typically, which is June 21st, December 21st. It's actually December 27th, if technically, as someone who watches the sunrise every day, it's about 8:47. So it really does change. So our morning routine tends to evolve around the sunrise. So, in summer, typically they'll get up and go swim first, and then go do some degree of training or meditation, and then go back to the family. And then in winter, typically we'll get up and train first, maybe meditate, and then go swimming, or then have breakfast and then go swimming.
But I think the importance of a changing routine is nice. Like, you don't get too stuck in a rut, like, because the time changes, you can't get too comfy. You can't have I get up at 6:30 and I meditate, and then I do my yoga, and then I drink my lemon water, and then I do my gratitude journal, and then I do my 10 jumping jacks, and then it's 10 o'clock, and then it's nearly bedtime, and I'm nearly finished. You can't have this completely structured routine, which in one sense is great, and in another sense it's frustrating, because when you find you've got one that you like, then it changes again,
But it's wonderful in that the act of seeing the sunrise and swimming in the sea really connects you with the seasons. The changing of the seasons connects you with nature. It's a wonderful symbolism or metaphor for baptizing yourself in the water and overcoming a fear together, and coming out and feeling like these little penguins drinking warm tea, shivering, going.
And maybe, Steve, like we swim in the sea, and there's a whole group of us that do it, swim in the sea at sunrise, and there can be up to 100 or more, more. We've done events where there can be, 1,000 people, but typically there's somewhere between 5 and 30 or 40 or 50 people. And we swim at the sea at sunrise, and it's a really lovely communion. I'd say communion, because the root of the word, you're doing something together. And at that hour of the morning, it is quite peaceful and calm, and people typically aren't chattering. Most people are kind of, I feel tired or whatnot, but it's quite a mindful time in the morning. And then you don't want to get in the sea. You're kind of facing your fear first thing in the morning, which I think is such a beautiful metaphor, because I'd say 364 to 365 days of the year, I don't feel like getting in that sea. I don't want to get in the sea. It's not natural. I go down there and I go, why the hell do I do this? This is stupid. Like, it's so cold, and do I have to do it? And it's rain and it's windy and blah, 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 blah. And then I get in the sea and I hit that water and I just, oh my God, just feel it. And every day I get out of that water and go, I'm surprised at how incredible I feel. I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. And I'm honestly surprised, like, about how it seems it strips away the boring adult that's whinging about things. And my inner child kind of jumps out and goes, woohoo, here we go. And it's a blessing.
And you do that with others, and you're all like these loose, jacked up electrons bouncing around the beach, drinking tea, sharing.
Yeah, and you forge wonderful friendships, because there's so much endorphins. Like, it is like an adrenaline sport. There's so much endorphin. It kind of is. There's so much hormones or adrenaline's released when you do that first thing in the morning. And then you stand around and drink tea and talk and chat, and you forge these really deep bonds quite quickly.
Yeah, I heard you say something really profound. You said you don't love the person that goes into the sea, but you love the person that comes out of the sea.
Yeah.
Question. Are we talking like just a quick little, let me go dip my body in, or are we talking swimming out 200 meters and then back, or what is it? What is the routine?
It depends on the time of the year. So in winter, it's technically called ice swimming, because the water, like, it's moving water, body of water. So it can only get to 5 degrees. That's the coldest it can get, but it's freezing. Like, sometimes we say it's like getting into like a million shards of glass, because it feels like it's so cold. You're not sure if you're being burned.
You don't know if it's hot or cold. It's just this very intense sensation. Feeling. But it's just so electrifying, whatever the heck it does.
And in winter,
but to answer your question, it's just a dip. I'd say half of the year it's a dip, and then the other half of the year it's a slightly longer dip, and then it gets into a swim when it gets warmer.
But typically the dip, you'll go in and your breath is like, you start hyperventilating, and typically you'll stay in until your breath calms and until you normalize with it. And that's,
which is only 40 seconds, I'd say. It's more like a dip than a swim.
Yeah.
So we're not complete whipping ourselves, like.
So there's no wetsuits being worn at any point.
No.
Yeah. So this has become a movement. You guys started making porridge for people. Would you say that this is something that really helped to spread this revolution? This idea of, hey, come and join us, because you posted the thing that time, you had 150 people turn up, and now it's become this whole thing.
Yeah, I guess, like, nowadays, like even today, there's 2 lovely friends from Germany, and then a lovely girl from London came over. So regularly people from all over the world come and join us for the simple act of
Scotland. The day before, there was 4 women from London. So there's lots of people kind of show up and go, oh, that seems like something fun. I'd love to go do that. And so people do just show up randomly.
It provides that lovely, I guess, in a time when loneliness and disconnection is extremely prevalent, it provides a simple, free, accessible means with which to kind of commune with others, commune with nature, and suddenly go, wow, the simple things in life really do and can provide me with significant meaning and a feeling of connection and belonging.
And the type of people that get up and swim at sunrise are a certain type of people. Like, they're, they tend, I don't know.
And I shouldn't say it's a particular type, but it's maybe at different stages.
There's a certain zest for life. You wouldn't get everyone to do it because it's uncomfortable. It's not present. Like, it's not like you're swimming in the Caribbean. It's getting into the Irish Sea, and you don't know if it's going to be sunny or rainy or windy or, and it never lets you down. There's never a day you get in there and go, geez, I wish I didn't do
And
that.
one of the beautiful things about it is that no matter where you're at in society, if you're someone that's perceived as really successful and someone who isn't successful, you stand there in a pair of togs and you're all scared. You're all like little babies that don't want to get in. And then you come out and you just feel extremely equal. It's really good for human dignity that we're all equal. We're all unified.
And something that's glorious about it is that it's not like most of us typically have friends which are our own peers. You know, they're the similar, you know, we all go to school at the same age groups and our friends growing up are typically the same ages. But the type of people who we swim with are just such a mixture of ages from
and different
70s
countries.
and 60s and 50s and 40s and 30s and 20s and 16-year-olds. And it's such a diversity of humans that it's really
enriching, I think.
Yeah, it's very enriching in terms of, you know, if you think of your microbiome as a collection of diverse microorganisms, and the health of your own immune system is directly correlated to the diversity of the microorganisms within your gut. I think it's the same within, as a community, on a macro perspective, the diversity that we have in terms of friendships and relationships, probably the more resilient we are, possibly. That's now a half-baked theory.
I like your theory.
Thanks, Steve. I thought you
So were you guys making your loan payments in those early days? No problem?
Yeah, I think we paid it back. We must have paid it back because we're still in business.
But no, at times, like for the first number of years, we were very financially irresponsible. We kind of didn't measure the business really in terms of financial profit and loss and, you know, where we were at. And yet we had, you know, a number of years of training in that discipline. We kind of, I guess I remember going to, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Patch Adams, with what's his name?
Robin Williams.
I remember finding my way to Chicago. I'd met him at some egalitarian commune that he spoke of this school called School for Designing a Society. I thought, wow, that sounds cool. And I remember going up there and meeting some fella called Mark, and he said they were doing a summer month down in Patch Adams community called Gesundheit in North Carolina. And I remember finding my way down there. And I spent
West Virginia.
It was somewhere anyway, West Virginia. And I went and kind of, you know, it was a month long exploring the concept of, you know, how can you use business as a vehicle for social change? And I remember I was hugely intrigued with it. And I remember, I think it was a lady called Judy Wicks who started this cafe called the Black Dog Cafe. She had said that money is a bit like manure. You pile it up nice and high and it smells of shit, or it smells of dung. But if you spread it out amongst the community, you can encourage so much to grow. So I think money, although we had been trained in the art of capitalism, ultimately within ourselves, we wanted to kind of encourage more community and more togetherness. So money really we'd seen as a bit almost against it, because I don't know, it was initially, but over time we learned that if we want to be a business within capitalism, profit is okay. And you need to, if you do want to sustain your business, you need to run a financially responsible business. So it took the best part of 10 years to make peace with that, but we've made peace with it now.
Yeah, we've been in business nearly 18 years, and it's gone from where we started with a little vegetable shop, and I guess it reached a high of 200 and something people working with us, but now it's back down to about 100. We've got 2 cafes and a shop and 2 farms and coffee roastery, and we've got 5 cookbooks and a 6th one coming out next month, and we've online courses and 60 food products in 1,000 stores in Ireland, so like hummuses and pestos and granolas and ready meals in Super Value and Central around Ireland. So it's,
and then we've online courses.
Yeah, so we've been very diverse in terms of our activities as well, in terms of how we can support people to.
Yeah, even at the moment, we were talking about it earlier. We kind of got quite the spectrum in terms of a diverse business. We have, you know, we've literally started a regenerative organic farm. So we have our hands in the soil, and then the other spectrum, we've an app coming out, you know, at the end of the month. So it's quite
in September.
And in between, we've many of the facets of a food business. So it's quite a fun, diverse adventure.
Has one of you, or let me ask it this way, what are your natural roles that you sort of organically grew into as business leaders, or as leaders of this movement, this revolution? is one of you more interested in finances, or the other one more interested in managing people, or anything like that?
That's the beauty of being twins. You share the same blind spots and
same strengths and
inherent
weaknesses. By and large.
But
do we have specific roles?
Yeah,
no, it'd be much better if one of us was clear on numbers and one wasn't, but we're both a bit like two dancing ponies, or we're both kind of like, we both typically like a lot of the same things. And I guess as two people that are good with vision and good with kind of dreams and don't really see boundaries, and like kind of being up and seeing where we're going and steering what's going on, and strategy and like starting projects, we're very good at those type of things. And a lot of the things in between we're less good at. So.
Yeah. And I guess that's where you learn that, you know, it took us a long while to learn that that's where
a team is really important.
A team.
Our brother Dara,
the ability to delegate.
Our brother Dara runs the company with Paul, and they're both the main kind of, they're good at structures and systems and
financial controls and management.
And they're much better at those bits, and we're less good at those bits. And it can be a good, you know, good dance together.
But to have a brand called the Happy Pear, I mean, that's a really tight corner to paint yourself in, because it also means that your team, your employees have to somewhat embody this sense of happiness, right? So how do you think about hiring? How do you think about hiring team members, bringing people on to your team? And how do you think about firing?
Yeah, I think
sensitively and gently and considerately, I think that would probably be what we do. But certainly in the early days where we were directly in terms of hiring, it would have been like picking a family member. You know, you'd be very careful and you'd make sure you were picking a family member. So it would have been super, super important. But then as the business grew to where we couldn't manage it, because there was so much that we were being dragged here, there, and the other with writing cookbooks and traveling and doing talks and all sorts of things, that the day-to-day business, we couldn't handle that and do the kind of more brand building pieces. So our brother and others kind of took on the hiring bits, because, you know, we had a production facility where you're making pestos and hummuses. So you've got kind of production kitchens, and then you've got chefs, and then you've got people cleaning pots, and then you've got people serving customers, and then you've got people working on the farm, and then you've got other people in computers, and you've got IT systems people. So there was such a diversity of people that you needed a
diversity of skills. But in essence,
HR.
I guess to answer your question more directly, you know, I always like Richard Branson's kind of expression, hire for attitude, train for skill. And generally, even Jamie Oliver, who we used to work with in London when we first started doing YouTube, he always his team would always say that, you know, typically someone that you'd enjoy sitting beside for a long haul flight. That's kind of generally, you want to be able to have someone, you know, if you're going to work with someone, you're going to typically be spending lots of time with them. So you want to make sure there's someone that you
like,
firstly enjoy their company. And from there, and if they have a good openness and kind of willingness to learn, you know, we can make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess, as I said, we did kind of grow to where we had a team of 220, I think, at the height. And now we're back down to about 100. And now it seems more right-sized. And now it's kind of back to more familiar, more family kind of, because I guess at that stage there was new people starting every week, and we didn't know their names and hadn't been involved with them. And every time you went down to Pearville, where our food production place, you were introducing yourself. Oh, hello, hi, I'm David. And you didn't know who the heck they were. And you didn't know if they worked with you or not, or you just...
Or what they did. It kind of felt
you just felt a bit like an imposter, whereas now it's kind of, it feels more homely again and more familiar and a bit more like the Rebel Alliance, the Renegade Rebel Alliance that's trying to, you know, improve the world.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Jamie Oliver. He invited you to join his FoodTube network, and you learned a lot. You learned what people want, what people don't want, what works, what doesn't work. Can you share a few of those takeaways from that experience?
Yeah, so we started, we were kind of invited by Jamie Oliver and his team to go be part of his FoodTube network. So I think it was a total of 10 different content creators from all over the world. And we used to go over to London once a month and shoot YouTube videos. And it was really fun and exciting. And, you know, it was quite a bit of tinsel. It was like a draw. Wow, we're going over and we're shooting with Jamie and his team. And oh my God, this is so exciting. And it was a wonderful opportunity for us, I guess, to use the digital platform to try to inspire people to eat more veg. And I guess, you know, we've been shooting YouTube videos for probably 7-8 years now since then. And it's, you know, it's gone from where we probably had 2 subscribers to now there's over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and probably 1.5 million across different platforms. But it's the same kind of thing. We try to use it as a means to inspire people to eat more veg and to kind of, you know, do our best to try to inspire people to connect, to live.
And you realized very quickly that it was people are looking for, you know, it has to be very zeitgeist to get views. You know, it is a game, it's a competition again. So we quickly, in terms of, you know, we realized people they didn't have a lot of time to cook and wanted quick, easy, simple things. So we started cooking 5-minute dinners, which was, you know, because people say, I don't have the time and whatnot. So we started cooking at 5-minute dinners, and, you know, now I think we've got nearly 50 million views on our videos, and they're really quick, easy, simple dinners to help people to eat more fruit and veg. And, you know, we've just got a new book coming out now in 2 weeks' time. It's called The Veg Box, which is all about, it really is that. It's the distillation of you're ultimately trying to inspire people. Like the current food environment doesn't really encourage us to eat more fruit and veg. It's not set up for us to be healthy. Like it's really not. It's for us to, it's to satisfy our desires for fat and sugar. That's the current food environment. And it's
to scratch our dopamine addiction.
Like, really. And it really is. And it's that's the kind of at its root. And it's incredible. The food system is amazing, how we feed so many people every day and whatnot. But certainly from a health perspective, it's, you know, where if you look at the longest living people on the planet, they're eating you know, the vast majority of what they're eating is plant-based foods. You know, people that live over the age of 100, if you look to the blue zones, 95% plus their diet is plant-based, whole plant foods. Where if you look at the average kind of Western person's diet, 50% plus of their diet is ultra-processed foods, about 35 to 40 is animal-based foods, and less than 10% is whole plant foods. Whereas, so it's kind of a little inverse in terms of longevity and health and well-being. And ultimately, our mission really is about trying to empower each individual to kind of go, okay, health is ultimately, we want to wake up and have energy. We want to feel good. We want to feel confident in our bodies. And food is such an important component. And in our experience of nearly 20 years later at this, the more whole plant food, it's not about vegan, it's not about vegetarian, because those words are very exclusive and binary, but it is about eating more whole foods. And it does take intentionality, because we are all the product of our environment. You know, we're the product of the people we spend time with. We're the product of our societies, our communities we live in. And unfortunately, you go into most supermarkets and the processed, refined foods typically are cheaper than, and our mammal brains are hardwired to want these processed junk foods. Whereas, you know, the foods that we've evolved on are typically whole, real foods in their natural state. So the more whole plant foods you can eat, that's the name of the game, really.
And I think food offers a wonderful ability for us to connect. It's something that, you know, now if you think about, if you ask anyone what's at the heart of our economies, and most people think it's the financial sector. Oh no, it's the residential sector, it's tech, it's technology. But food is at the root of all economies, because without food, we're dead. So food is literally, it's the one thing beyond shelter and belonging and love and warmth that we all have to participate in every single day. And in an age where loneliness is prevalent, where disconnection, when mental health is on the rise, I think being involved in our food system, connecting with the earth, understanding what's in season, appreciating that, it can bring such a sense of meaning and such a sense of simple significance, and remind us that we're mammals that are fully interdependent on Mother Nature.
I love the idea. It's genius. So basically it's 10 vegetables. The subtitle is 10 vegetables, 10 ways. So what does that mean? What are the vegetables?
The context is that, like, you know, people will often go, oh my God, I don't have enough time and it costs so much, I'll just eat the pizza. And whereas you walk into any supermarket in the world and there's typically a special section, and there's carrots and there's onions and there's potatoes, and you go, oh geez, I'd love to buy them, but I don't know what to do with like 20 carrots. What am I going to do with 20 carrots?
Oh, not a rabbit.
Or someone makes the Sunday dinner and they buy a pack of carrots and they use most of them, and there's 3 carrots in the fridge, and they're sitting there 2 weeks later and they go, what do I do with these carrots? What do I do with this broccoli? So instead of doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we went with the 10 most common veg. So broccoli, potatoes, carrots, you know, tomatoes, leek, mushrooms, 10 most regular veg. And we kind of said, okay, well, how can we push these to our limits? We've had 20 years eating plant-based. We've had nearly 18 years of cooking professionally with food products, all things. How can we make these 10 vegetables be as tasty as we can? So say, for example, in the carrots, we've kind of gone, okay, well, like people might make carrot soup, or they might make boiled carrots. They might make mashed carrots. Okay, well, can we make carrot granola, Steve? Can we make carrot granola? Yeah, great. Let's make carrot granola. Cool, right? Let's see if we can do it 10 ingredients. Brilliant. Great. I love it. Carrot flapjacks, carrot cake, carrot burgers, carrot falafels, see how far you can push it, because people will want to know what to do with carrots. And we did the same with broccoli. And obviously we kind of were seeing, can we make a cake with broccoli, Steve? Is there cakes with broccoli we can make? We really wanted to push the limit.
We discovered you couldn't with broccoli.
No, we couldn't come up with good cakes. We did try. But there's a lot of like broccoli pies and broccoli soups, and they're all with 10 ingredients or less. So the idea is really to empower people to kind of go, how can we make the food as simple, as quick, and as easy and as tangible? Because most people know they need to eat more veg, but the big gap is kind of going, well, what do I do with them? Like, I've got Billy next door. He's got an allotment and he dropped me in a bag of courgettes. What the hell do I do with these zucchinis? What do I do with them? Well, listen, we've got you covered. We've got you covered. Courgette cakes, and there's, courgette falafels, there's courgette fritters. There's a million different things you can do, but it's really we've tried to write the short letter here where it's simple and digestible.
Talk about your sustainable hierarchy. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, sustainable hierarchy was really kind of going, okay, well, people nowadays kind of get lost with, should it be organic? Should it be local? What's perfection? We get lost with perfection. And often it can be stifling. It can be kind of arresting in a sense. So our kind of mantra is progress over perfection. And we start with number one in terms of and this is a study came from 2018 from Oxford University. And they wanted to see what's the most sustainable thing we can do as individuals for the environment. And most people would kind of go, okay, well, maybe it's flying less. Maybe it's an electric car.
I need a Tesla. Yeah,
it's definitely a Tesla. We all need Teslas. But what they realized is that the single biggest thing that at an individual level was to eat a plant-based diet, or as plant-based diet as you can, because there's so much embodied energy in our food choices, and each of us as individuals has a choice. Every time we choice of going, okay, am I supporting one type of food system and I'm forming one type of capitalism or another? And I guess number one in terms of our sustainable hierarchy is to try to do your best to eat as plant-based as you can. Like as plant-centric, it's not an all or nothing type thing. It's not if you eat a piece of chicken, you're off the team, but it really is about trying to do your best to eat more whole plant foods. Like number two, we have to try to eat a variety and a diversity. The American Gut Project, which was one of the big studies done in terms of microbiome and gut health, they wanted to find out where are the big levers in terms of our gut health, because they realized that our microbiome, our gut health, it impacts our immune systems, it impacts our mental health, it impacts every organ in our body. And they found out that if you eat more than 30 different plant-based foods in a week, you're going to be super powered. Your immune system will function better. Your mental health will function. They found a correlation between a diversity of 30 different foods and better mental health.
And typically it's only 1 in 125 people that actually hit that 30 different types of fruit and veg a week.
Number three was to prioritize local. So people, it's to kind of people get caught with, should it be local? Should it be seasonal? Should it be whatever? It's like on our sustainable hierarchy, it's local. Obviously locals can have less miles, less embodied energy. So it doesn't matter if it's organic or non-organic.
And also there's a beautiful thing about eating in season. We live in this age now, you can order things on your phone from sitting on your couch. We're super disconnected. And like say, my wife, she's from Poland. We go over there typically, during summer. And my parents-in-law have a wonderful veg patch, and they grow all their own food. And there's something beautiful about we only eat raspberries when raspberries are in season. And when you eat them in season, you gorge on raspberries, and they're so special. And when raspberry season ends, you've eaten your weight in raspberry, and you don't want to eat a raspberry for another year. And there's something beautiful about the celebration of it. And then it kind of naturally comes to an end, versus modern day society. We can eat raspberries at Christmas when they're not in season and they've flown halfway across the world. So I think the more we can celebrate local, the more that we're working in harmony with our local ecosystem.
And I guess at the core of a sustainability hierarchy is progress over perfection. That has to be the mantra, because there is no perfect. We're all going to die anyway. So it really is about doing your best and trying to stack the deck in your favor. And it's thinking of the big boulders rather than getting lost in the pebbles in the sand. and yeah, trying to do local, trying to prioritize organic, trying to prioritize plant-based, but doing your best. You know, we're all going to die anyway, as we said, so it's about really doing your best. And even on the topic of we were talking about food production, whatever. In the last number of months, we've just started a local regenerative farm. So we've just bought 4 acres of land, and we've started a community farm, which is very much at its core. The whole core of the idea is it's soil therapy and free workouts for the community to get up there and get a shovel and get a spade and help build vegetable beds. And it really is therapy.
But even over the last month, we've been Saturday mornings, we've typically put it out. We haven't put it out to the wider community, but just our little swim group, we've kind of put it out, you know, come up, and we jokingly say free workouts, but there's something, you know, in the fabric of what it is to be a human mammal, at least in the last 100,000 years, where we started kind of agriculture, like the sense of working together with your hands in the soil with a collective project. There's something about how it feeds our soul. Like we often say, like putting your hands in soil, it's like, it's you're connecting with part of your soul. Like it's really, there's something so therapeutic and so connecting and primal, and working together and having these conversations.
And when there's kids running around and you're outdoors and the birds are chirping, and it just, you feel connected, you feel at ease. It feels like it's healing. It feels like
it's awesome. It's awesome too, because you're bringing together these things that are all so important to your message, which is community, which is movement, which is doing things that are inconvenient. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, discomfort. Yeah, I think discomfort is, and I guess we came across it by swimming the sea, you know, just discomfort, the importance.
But even we experienced it ourselves, I guess, with years of, you know, athletic training, but even then, say Vipassana meditation, sitting still. Like I remember the first time I sat a Vipassana course, I think it was day 4, you were introduced to this idea of aditan, sitting, to sit for an hour without moving. And I remember just it being absolute torture. It was one of the hardest physical endurance things I ever did. But over time, you became more comfortable with this discomfort, and it allowed you to kind of form a greater resilience.
And it's not saying to be sadistic in any sense, but there is this, I think the modern day word is more, what's that kind of, there's a trendy word for stoicism in itself. And it's a nice word. And like a lot of kind of people can kind of go, oh yeah, like it's a nice, you know, I think they sell more, the rise in stoicism books has been massively over the last kind of 5 to 10 years, because I guess society is set up for us to be comfortable, particularly Western culture, where we spend a lot of time sitting and we've warm beds and heated houses and food. We've so much food. Like life has never been more comfortable in the history of humanity in the Western culture. And I'm not saying this exclusively for everyone, but by and large it is. So discomfort is really, it's flexing that muscle. If you look at the longest living people, again, they typically, it's not all comfortable. And if you look at,
like, if you look to the blue zones, they don't have cars. They got a cycle. They typically grow their own veg. They have their hands in the soil. They're crouching down. They live in multi-generational homes.
No, I was going to say more on the topic of like the contrast between comfort and stress. I think that's where you find the greatest balance and the greatest area of growth. Like if you listen to some of the longevity talks, they'll say the importance of cold and heat and war, you know, running and inactivity, and the contrast between both kind of tend to flex our muscles and give us a better heart rate variability or greater bandwidth of capacity of dealing with resilience and whatnot. And certainly we found that with the sea and with movement and all these various things of facing your fear on a daily basis, and the importance of showing up, because it's very easy to lie in bed and press that snooze button, and it's very easy to choose that donut over that piece of fruit,
and it's so easy to get sucked into
social media. And it's so easy to sit there and watch show after show on Netflix. But I think it's a muscle that needs flexing, and certainly we are very grateful for that. Somehow it's happened where we swim in the sea every morning at dawn, and it's, as I said, every day I don't feel like it, but every day I get in that sea, it's like I've done the hardest thing I can do. I've faced fear, and I feel like a better person, and it's downhill from there. I feel like I'm on the water.
And I think you'll know yourself, typically, say you're going to do a talk or an interview, that you're nervous about doing it, and you could easily kind of want to quit. But typically on the other side of that discomfort is euphoria, is joy, is growth, is kind of
there's the two sides of life, the night and the dark. And when we can lean into that dark or that discomfort, we can experience more of the light. And I think it's so, you can live straight down the middle of life, but I think it's only when you lean into that darkness that it expands your capacity to experience lightness.
Yeah, I talk about growing up in Greystones. What was that like? I know you have two other brothers, and were your parents together?
Yeah.
They're still together.
Parents are still together. I think they're married 50 years.
Wow.
I think it's something
It was
like
47, maybe. I think.
No, I think maybe it was 47. Something, a long time anyway. A long time.
You guys you're the oldest, right?
Yeah, we're the eldest. Yeah. And we
Okay.
grew up in a small, so Greystone's a small little town. It's 20K south of
What
Dublin.
country is it in?
Country Ireland. Ireland. So it's Ireland, on the east coast of Ireland, small little town. If anyone's seen Lord of the Rings, it's kind of like the Shire. It's like very pleasant, full of hobbits with small hairy feet. No, it's not. It's but it's by the sea and it's really nice. It's got all mountains around it and small little like town in Ireland. So that's what we grew up in. And 42 years later, we still live here. So it's been, it's been wonderful and glorious, and also the valley of squinting windows, they call it, a small little town where everyone knows
Valley of Squinting
never heard
Windows?
that expression. Like, it's an old Irish expression that would be more the valley of squinting windows, where everyone's looking out their windows, looking at what's going on, and everyone's looking to know one of this
What's the neighbor doing?
like, that kind of way that people go to more urban centers or cities because there's a bit more anonymity, whereas in a small town you've got the wonderful joys of community and connection and knowing all your neighbors, but it also comes with the idea that a lot of people know
Social
your business.
accountability,
which you don't tend to get in a city.
Right. So I grew up with three other brothers, and I grew up in a small town. And I remember growing up, all I could think about was getting out of the small town and going to some big city and having that experience. So what were you guys thinking of in terms of where your lives were heading? Did you see yourself always doing everything together, or do you think to yourself, I can't wait to get away from Dave or Steve at some point, when you were younger, and I want to blaze my own path? Because I actually have an Irish twin. My older brother is 11 months older than I am. So I was always in his shadow. All of the teachers that he had, I had. And so I could never really form my own identity. And that's something that was really important to me. So what was your experience like with that?
I think being a twin, you just, by the very nature of it, you're blessed, or if you chose to see it another way, you could say you're cursed with this joint identity. For the majority of my life anyway, and Dave's too, it's like not hello Stephen or hello David, it's which one of you we're greeted with.
Which one of you? That was more your name.
So there is part of it, like it or loathe it, you're kind of, this is part of the identity that we're born in this existence. And it's been wonderful.
And even in a small town, like, we literally shared a wardrobe till we were 30. Like, so it was first up, best dressed. It really was that situation. So where we'd a room off one another, so you just shared everything. You were just, we were one egg that split into two, which sounds weird. That's with inside a womb. So we always had this joint. There's almost like we've been cloud computing in a sense. Like, cloud computing sounds weird, but it's just a metaphor for how people might understand it. That there's always been a symbiosis, more so than siblings and more so than brothers or typical relationships, because you've got this root that a lot of people don't have, where you wear one egg that's split into two, and you've spent so much time that you can almost see what the other one's thinking from his mood, his mannerisms, his movement, breath, his physiology, everything. You just know it intuitively because it's just innate.
And there were times during our life, like, teenagers, when you're 16, there were times when you were kind of you like the idea of kind of blazing your own path, but at the same time you realized that there was this wonderful synergistic effect, that it was like 1 + 1 could equal 10 when you were together, and you knew how to bring the best out of each other. It was like, a conductor knew how to bring out, the best of the orchestra. It was like that between the two of us. We just, and once we realized that, and also we realized, I guess at a reasonably young age, that we were relatively unemployable, in that we were very autonomous and had clear ideas of what we thought was a way to live a life that we wanted to live. And I think that was part of the reason why we always felt we were going to go into business together, and that we wanted to try to do something together, because we knew we'd have a laugh. And
whether it was furniture removal, or whether it was selling orange juice to train station, or what did happen, starting a vegetable shop. So It was always going to be, sure, me and him versus the world, you know, that kind of way.
What were some of your ideas of success that you inherited from your family growing up?
I'd say it was less family and more culture, because, you know, culture, it would have always been growing up in school. And I remember growing up in secondary school, and we used to draw logos on our copybooks, and you'd be drawing symbols like Nike and Adidas. Like, it was, you know, it was the start of the brands in the early 90s, where brands were synonymous. So you'd write Levi's or these kind of things, because you kind of, there was this subconscious, can I just finish? There was the subconscious narrative of like consumerism and capitalism. And this is, you know, there was this subtext to society that there was, you know, if you had these things, you were successful. And I remember, like, you know, transitioning into teenagers, and we wanted branded clothes because that was a sign, you know, that you were an adolescent that was trying to find your own identity. And we obviously wanted branded clothes, not the cheap clothes that, you know, most kids had. And that was kind of, so I guess that the narratives would have been that the same ones that most people, like, we're 42. So growing up in the 80s, 90s, was that materialism, the more things you had, the more successful you were going to be. And that was the likely narratives, in spite of it. And that wouldn't have come from our parents. Our parents were both,
it was just culturally really, like, we both studied business separately. Actually, it was the first time where we technically had to separate and have some degree of a divorce. Was we both applied to do the same college and university, and we got different points, so we had to go to different colleges. So that was kind of like the first separation, the first divorce, which you know, in lots of ways was challenging, but at the same time, I think there's enough inertia that you were so used to having this support system that it always meant that you just felt like it was there even when it wasn't there. But at university anyway, just to get back to your question while I'm rambling, at university studying business, it's very much, you know, heralded. Like, there was one lecturer I remember who used to lecture financial management, and he was all about how much money he had, and all the lads used to kind of idealize him and go, oh my God, the wealth he has, and he just flew in by a helicopter to give this lecture, oh my God. So it was really celebrated kind of wealth and success, or what, quote unquote, you know, materialism, if you start climbing up the material ladder.
And even being these, like, obviously being an identical twin, we're super competitive, because you've always been competing for everything, like competing for dinner, or competing for a rugby ball, or competing for a tennis ball, or competing for your mother's love and attention. So like every day of your life, you're, you know, we when people say they're competitive, it's like, no, you're not. If you're not an identical twin, like, it's just a different level of competitiveness, because everything in every moment of, like, it was just, we were bred on competition, whether we wanted it or not. Like, we're just both innately very competitive through nature rather than nurture, or no, through nurture rather than nature. So by the time we went to, like, you know, and that played out that we played semi-professional rugby by the time we were 18. We both played off very low. You know, I nearly went pro in golf. We were, you know, we played baseball for Ireland. We played, you know, we were very good at those type of things. And then being in an all boys school, if you kissed a pretty girl, you got great social credit. And that was how the kind of social pecking order used to work in an all boys school. So when we were in the later years of school, you know, obviously if you kissed a pretty girl, so obviously we got quite competitive about that, and used to, you know, that was, in a sense, that was another means of expressing yourself and trying to climb up the social pecking order. And then we went to university, and it was all about, as Stephen said, the subtext was, if you make loads of money, you're going to be happy. So we very much, being hyper competitive identical twins, was like, you know, Steve was all about, if that lad Richard Branson has a private island, like, well then Dave, right, this is it. By the time we're 40, we're gonna have 3 private islands. We're gonna have planes, where this is it, we're going for it. I'm gonna be a stockbroker, you're gonna be a stockbroker too, and we're gonna just divide and conquer, right, Dave? Like, and that would have been the plan in business school. And then by the end of it, you know, both of us neither believed it anymore. Like, we really just didn't. There was a sense of a slight hollowness, or a slight, I don't know, an emptiness. We didn't believe it anymore. And Steve turns to me just after we'd finished university. Steve turns to me, he says, Dave, I'm going away traveling. I'm going to Canada. I've got a one-way ticket. I'm not coming back till I'm happy, and you're not coming with me. And that was it. And that was our first kind of divorce, as it would be, that we both went their separate way for, you know, to see what life had on offer. And really, it was the start of the whole unraveling of the social paradigm of materialism and money. And things, the collection of things will ultimately make you happy. And that was the start of our own individual journeys of seeing what else life had on offer, really, and what felt true for us.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, my whole shtick is I like to understand motivation. And you mentioned that you guys just kind of fell out of love with the American dream. What happened? Did somebody die? And you were like, oh my God, what is this all about? Like, how did you have this sort of existential moment? What did you have a conversation with someone? Did you read a book? What preceded that choice?
I think there was always a degree of frivolous that possibly we were allured by, with the idea of kind of materialism, and that ultimately there was a deeper part of ourselves that we knew that was there, but that we were probably afraid to sit with because we were so busy and so entertained and distracted. And it was only a small little voice that was there. And it was like, I remember traveling, we were traveling around through Europe, and I remember on a train, I remember meeting this guy who kind of clearly had been traveling for a long while, and he was a real searcher for meaning in life. And I remember he was telling us about this Vipassana meditation course. And I remember thinking, wow, that sounds cool, to like hit these states of like pure bliss in silence. Wow. I remember being intrigued by that, and the concept that there was more to this game of life, and that possibly, it wasn't a kind of, you get to be really wealthy and then you get to the next level, like a computer game, that there's possibly, you can look at it in many different ways. And I guess
that there's secret doorways or whatever to, and I guess that's what each of us are fumbling around, looking for these doorways to a greater sense of ease within ourselves, because pain and suffering with our current minds and most of our mental states is just part of daily life. And I guess most of us are looking for deeper sense of connection and meaning within ourselves. And most of us play out certainly we played out the cultural paradigm of, drink loads of beer, go out and get drunk, try to meet a girl or a boy, whatever your preference was. In our case, it was always girls. And then, try to get social recognition. And that was kind of part of which we thought were the pathways to greater happiness. And that this is in our early, our late teens and early 20s. And then we both went away traveling separately just to see what else life had on offer. And that was the first time we had been outside of our own, being away without the social support. So we both realized we were interested in total different things, and
it was beautiful in that, like when we first went traveling separately, it was quite vulnerable. You were quite exposed. This was pre-social media. So you didn't have a phone. You didn't have this digital shadow follow you around. It was like, there was an anonymity. When you arrived in a place, it was like, people really didn't know who you were, and they couldn't search who you were, and they couldn't. So it was like, who am I going to be this time? Maybe I won't be a jock. Maybe I'll actually try to be a musician, or maybe one of those spiritual guys. They look kind of interesting. Maybe I'll see what this thing called yoga is, or what the hell is meditation? Or curiosity. There was a curiosity and a social freedom, like where you could kind of go, where do I want to be, and who don't want what? Like, how am I going to define myself now?
But I guess without going too ephemeral, it was more this journey started with going away separately, and it was we left as these two meathead, like as in meat and two veg, loads of pints of beer, semi-pro rugby players that had just studied business, that used to do male modeling because it was great to pick up girls. And this was who we thought we were. And we went away traveling, and over a period of 2 years of traveling separately, we ended up both changing to adopting a vegan diet, giving up alcohol, getting into meditation and yoga, growing long hair, strong offensive body odors. And then 2 years later, we come back and we decide we want to start a vegetable shop to change the world. So it was quite a journey of transformation and quite a period of change within ourselves, internally as much as externally.
Like the external change was largely just to kind of tell our home community that treat us differently. We've changed. I don't want to be treated the same. So in essence, like to go, you said you like to know the mortar between the bricks. In essence, our paradigm had shifted, being from material success to be much more about community, health, and happiness. We found this gave us a lot more meaning, and we felt a lot more lit for ourselves.
And that's probably, looking back, we can put words on it, but during that time, you're clutching around, following your gut, and following your nose for what seems like it feels right, you know.
2 more questions. How are you all thinking about success these days?
A total arbitrary term.
I think it's about, ultimately for me, it's
We
about,
could give you a rational idea, but then like we're still privy to all the same fallacies that the conditioning we've been conditioned with. So we are not evolved beings. We are flawed humans fumbling along doing our best. So that's the pretext to this. So Steve, do you want to give the lofty answer?
no. No, I at least where I'm at now, I guess it's to maintain clarity and connection to a deeper version of myself, and to I don't know, I can go super
I'd say we know there's more to life than beyond materialism and fame and shiny bright things. So it's on a daily basis. Success is becoming more aware, more at ease with ourselves, and more accepting of all these flaws and fallacies within ourselves.
And also, I think success is the ability to be present with the little things in life, walking past the flowers and just admiring their beauty, seeing the way the light reflects on the leaves, seeing the flowers that are in front of you now, or seeing even joy in the challenges of life. I think that's success.
And that's success. And saying that, like, we're as we said, we're flawed humans fumbling along doing our best, and some days we're perfect, we're great at it, and other days we're not as good at it.
Beautiful. All right, so you all have been in the cafe, book business, the social media business for a very long time. You both have families, both have kids. If you could go back and give your 23-year-old self some words of wisdom from all of your years of experience, when you first brought up this idea of this revolution, what would you say?
Slow down and revel in it all. It passes really quick.
I'd say go hard, go fast, get stuck in and enjoy it all.
Well, there's the balance right there.
Don't be afraid. You know the way, like, it's so easy to be afraid and to hide behind, whether it be alcohol or hide behind something. But I think get stuck in, don't be afraid. Like, do your best to embrace discomfort while still respecting that sometimes discomfort is a survival mechanism. But do your best to find that balance with where you're putting yourself in a position where you can grow and to show how incredible you really are, and because what you're really capable of.
Because no matter how much money or how much things you collect, ultimately we all have to live with ourselves and make peace with ourselves in each moment. So I think it's that reminder that, hey, the whole thing's a game. Like, really just enjoy the journey, keep on smiling, enjoy the whole trip, and take it easy and revel in it, you know.
Beautiful. I have one more question I just thought of. What's the biggest misconception that people have about you guys compared to your real life?
I don't know. I quite like the recent expression that what other people think of me is not my business. I like that in theory, but I don't know.
I know people who come meet us, they go, oh my God, geez, you're even like, I didn't think you'd be like you are on social media. You're like just the same or even worse. Like worse, even more like than are, like, people go, I didn't really think, I thought this was a show. Like, and it's like, no, we're just two lads running around having a good time, you know,
doing our best.
Generally, you know, that's generally what it is. We're quite happy-go-lucky, you know, being identical twins or whatever. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on, sharing your story.
If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. Click this thumbnail right here, and I'll see you over there.